We are always taught that the United States is one giant, indivisible monolith. But what if I told you that the United States is actually a geopolitical fiction? Beneath the surface of a single flag lies a fractured continent of 12 rival civilizations, each with its own secret borders and clashing loyalties. Welcome back to GeoAtlas. While the Pledge of Allegiance speaks of one nation, the geographic reality is far more chaotic. In truth, the United States is less of a single country and more of a fragile marriage between 12 competing regions. These aren't just mere neighborhoods. They are distinct cultural entities with their own unique values, histories, and political priorities that often view their neighbors as complete foreigners. From the rugged individualism of the far west to the colonial echoes of Tidewater, these regions operate like independent nations masquerading under a federal banner. If you've ever wondered why America feels so polarized, the answer isn't just politics, it's deep-rooted geography. Don't forget to subscribe as we navigate the hidden map of the 12 nations of America. Forget everything you learned in geography class. Those straight state lines on your map, they are nothing more than imaginary ink. The real borders of America are invisible, fluid, and far more dangerous, and they've just been updated to include 12 distinct civilizations. The architect of the invisible map, historians and journalists have long suspected that the American identity was a polite mask. This concept was pioneered by journalist Colin Woodard, who famously proposed 11 distinct American nations in his groundbreaking work. However, here at GeoAtlas, we've taken his research a step further. To truly understand the modern superpower, we must expand this list to 12 nations to reflect the seismic cultural shifts of the 21st century. We have officially added the isolated kingdom of Hawaii and the vibrant tropical powerhouse of the Spanish Caribbean nation, covering southern Florida and Puerto Rico. These areas are cultural islands, totally alienated from the regions surrounding them. If you're finding this deep dive fascinating, make sure to hit that subscribe button to join our global exploration. If you stripped away the political borders, you wouldn't see 50 states. You'd see 12 overlapping territories that treat state lines like mere suggestions. Let's trace the real anatomy of the US, Yankee Dum. Rooted in New England, this culture stretches like a colonial vine through upstate New York, Michigan, and into the Great Lakes of Wisconsin and Minnesota. New Netherlands, a high-density powerhouse centered on New York City, extending its influence into northern New Jersey and the Hudson Valley. The Midlands, the Great American Middle, cutting through Pennsylvania and rolling westward across Ohio, Indiana, and Illinois into the heart of Iowa and Missouri. Tidewater, a nostalgic remnant of the old Atlantic colonies hugging the Chesapeake Bay in Virginia, Maryland, and North Carolina. Greater Appalachia, a rugged, defiant band of territory stretching from the hills of western Pennsylvania down through Kentucky, Tennessee, and deep into the Texas interior. The Deep South, dominating the heart of the old Confederacy, encompassing Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and South Carolina. The Spanish Caribbean, our newest addition, where the pulse of Miami and Puerto Rico creates a culture entirely distinct from the traditional South. New France, a cultural enclave tucked neatly between the Gulf of Mexico and the Deep South. El Norte, a border-defying civilization spanning Southern California, Arizona, New Mexico, and West Texas. The Far West, a massive interior empire covering Nevada, Utah, the Rockies, the Dakotas, and even the Alaskan mainland. The Left Coast, a narrow but elite strip of Pacific power running from San Francisco through Seattle and up into the Alaskan archipelago. Hawaii, a nation separated by thousands of miles of ocean and centuries of unique Polynesian history. These 12 nations are the true reason why America feels like a collection of different countries sharing a single house. Their politics and social trends are often at war because their geography was destined to clash. Stay tuned as we dive into the history of how these borders were actually forged. Why do European borders look like organic, jagged veins, while American states look like someone went crazy with a ruler? It's because state lines are a lie. To find the real America, you have to look at the soil, the ships, and the original settlers. Cultural lines don't align with modern state borders because nations aren't formed by politicians with pens. They are formed by centuries of shared language and lived experience. Look at Europe. Its borders look organic because they follow linguistic and cultural shifts that took 500 years to bake into the land. In the United States, each of our 12 nations grew from a distinct historic route, heavily dictated by the surrounding landscape. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the hidden anatomy of the US, make sure to hit that subscribe button to join the GeoAtlas community. The Eastern origins, piety and profit, Yankee Dum. Born from Puritan colonies in New England, these settlers sought a religious utopia. The geography, rocky soil, and brutal winters made massive plantations impossible, forcing them into tight-knit, self-sufficient towns centered on churches and schools. This town hall DNA stretched as far west as Minnesota. New Netherlands, founded by the Dutch as a ruthless commercial trading post, it capitalized on the sheltered natural harbor of modern-day New York City. This unique maritime geography prioritized urban density and multicultural trade over everything else, a legacy that defines the NYC area and Hudson Valley today. The Midlands, settled by Quakers and Germans, this region's fertile rolling hills across Pennsylvania and into Missouri were perfect for pluralistic middle-class family farms. Its central location turned it into the ultimate political swing region. The Southern Divide, aristocrats and frontiersmen tidewater, hugging the Chesapeake Bay. Its wide navigable rivers allowed English gentry to build a hierarchical society based on tobacco exports and plantation agriculture. Greater Appalachia, the rugged forested mountains isolated the Scots-Irish frontiersmen who settled here. They developed a culture of fierce independence and clan loyalty that spread from western Pennsylvania all the way to North Texas. The Deep South, its humid coastal plains and river deltas were perfect for cotton and sugar, enabling a brutal plantation economy that created a lasting racial caste system and a distinct African-American culture today. The expansionist frontiers, Spanish Caribbean and New France, the Spanish Caribbean, centered in Miami and Puerto Rico, acts as a tropical gateway to Latin America, defined by Spanish colonial roots and Catholicism. Meanwhile, New France remains a tiny but powerful enclave at the mouth of the Mississippi, El Norte, spanning the arid deserts from California to Texas. This is where the Spanish established missions long before the English reached the East Coast, creating a resilient, bilingual borderland identity. The far west, dominated by the Rockies and Arctic tundras, this was the last region to be settled. The environment was so harsh that human life required massive government projects, dams, railroads, and military bases, meaning the federal government still owns most of this land today. The left coast, a narrow strip where the Pacific meets the mountains, its temperate climate and vast forests encouraged a fusion of Yankee reformism and Western innovation. From San Francisco to Seattle, Hawaii, a volcanic archipelago thousands of miles away, its isolation helped preserve an indigenous Polynesian identity despite colonization, making it the only US region where the indigenous tongue remains a common language. Geography and history are embedded in these lines, and as the world changes, these 12 nations continue to evolve in ways our maps haven't caught up to yet. Is America actually a country or just 12 different nations trapped in a very long, very loud legal marriage? The truth is, the United States is a mosaic of civilizations currently locked in a cultural Cold War that no election can truly settle. The anatomy of a fragmented superpower. The United States has always struggled to define its soul. Is it a melting pot, a patchwork, or just a bold experiment? One thing is becoming increasingly undeniable. It has never been a single. Instead, it is a federation of worldviews and identities that coexist uneasily under a single banner. When you stop looking at red and blue states and start looking at deep-rooted cultural regions, the chaos finally starts to make sense. For instance, national elections don't just hinge on swing states. They hinge on the swing regions within them. Think about it. The progressive urban strongholds of Yankee Dum are constantly clashing with the rugged rural counties of Greater Appalachia, often within the same state borders. Even in Florida, the Spanish Caribbean pulse of Miami has historically been worlds apart from the Panhandle's deep South roots, though shifting retiree demographics and migrant ideologies are currently rewriting that script. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the real map of America, don't forget to subscribe to GeoAtlas for more geographic revelations, a quilt of 12 fabrics. These differences aren't just superficial quirks. They are the reason Americans often seem to be speaking entirely different languages. The fierce battles over guns, healthcare, and religion aren't just political, the left coast versus the far west. Both might share the California sun, but while the left coast pushes for universal healthcare and strict gun laws, the far west interior remains fiercely libertarian, demanding low taxes and minimal government interference. El Norte versus Greater Appalachia. In El Norte, the border is a zone of shared identity with Mexico. For Greater Appalachia, it is a line that must be hardened and made impenetrable. The Spanish Caribbean, anchored in Miami and San Juan, this nation operates with a bilingual, Spanish-inspired rhythm that feels like another planet compared to the Deep South. The system isn't broken, it's working. Trying to create a one-size-fits-all policy for these 12 nations is like trying to sew a quilt from 12 different fabrics using a single, fragile thread. The endless gridlock in Washington and the constant lawsuits between states and the federal government aren't glitches. They are the system playing out across this invisible map. This lens explains why San Francisco and Los Angeles feel like different universes, or why New Orleans is a cultural island to nearby Mobile, Alabama. The idea of a single American people has always been more of an aspiration than a reality. What truly holds this continent together isn't a shared culture, but shared infrastructure. Our roads, our currency, and our military. We are a loosely bound confederation, a mosaic that cooperates and competes. But if these nations were officially recognized today, which one would hold the most power? Which would be the wealthiest? And which would have the most people? Stay tuned as we look at the numbers. If the United States collapsed tomorrow, it wouldn't just break into red and blue states. It would shatter into 12 sovereign nations, each fighting for survival. Some would become global tech giants, while others would struggle to keep the lights on. Who wins in an American divorce? The power blocks of the new republics. If the Union dissolved, the map wouldn't fracture evenly. It would splinter along the ancient cultural fault lines we've been exploring. Yankee Dum, boasting a massive population of 58 million and a high median income of $57,000, would immediately emerge as a progressive powerhouse. Inheriting the elite universities and technological infrastructure of the Northeast and Great Lakes, it would likely form a progressive axis with the left coast. This alliance would dominate the global tech and sustainability sectors, acting as a forward-thinking republic with deep ties to Europe and Canada, and the heartland and the resource kings. In contrast, Greater Appalachia would be a demographic giant, but an economic enigma. Spanning from Pennsylvania to North Texas, its fiercely libertarian and rugged culture might resist a centralized government altogether, opting instead for a loose, decentralized federation. It would likely find a natural partner in the far west, forming a massive rural alliance focused on resource extraction, small government, and states' rights. Meanwhile, the Deep South, with its 45 million people, would become a socially conservative powerhouse. Despite having a lower median income, under $44,000, its internal cultural cohesion and traditional values would make it a formidable independent entity, likely allying with the Appalachians on cultural issues. The global gateways, the smaller nations would survive by carving out specialized niches. New Netherlands. Anchored by New York City, this region would function like a modern-day Singapore, a high-income, ultra-dense city-state dominating global finance and diplomacy. El Norte. With 34 million people and a young, bilingual workforce, it would become the ultimate economic bridge between North and Latin America. It would likely partner with the Spanish Caribbean, Miami, and Puerto Rico to form a pan-Caribbean coalition. Hawaii. Thousands of miles away, Hawaii would leverage its high income and Pacific ties to become a diplomatic and military keystone, perhaps remaining neutral or aligning with the left coast. The economic scorecard. By the numbers, the wealth gap would be staggering. The wealthiest per capita would be New Netherlands, Hawaii, and the left coast. Conversely, the Spanish Caribbean, Deep South, and El Norte would face the steepest economic climbs. In terms of land mass, the far west and Greater Appalachia would be the titans, while New Netherlands and the Spanish Caribbean would be the smallest players on the board. The United States is currently a single country, but underneath the surface, it is a mosaic of 12 vastly different identities. Understanding this doesn't just explain the US, it explains the friction within almost every nation on Earth. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the hidden geography of power, make sure to subscribe to GeoAtlas. You should also check out our video on 15 amazing geography facts of the United States. Thanks for watching, and see you on our next exploration.